We're so glad you can be here today. Hope you had a wonderful holiday. I'm Debbie Mrazek, and I'm president of the sales company, and I'm in Plano, Texas, which is just outside of Dallas, Texas. So welcome, wherever you are from wherever you are in the world. Thank you. Hello to you. Hi. Well, let's get started. This is the first Periscope I've ever done. It's a new year, a new experience, and so I thought I would give it a try. I've been really nervous about doing it. I'm not sure why. I speak, I talk to people all the time. I've been in sales forever, but something about talking to your phone and just having people respond via text on the bottom just seems strange to me. So I'm delighted you're here with me today. And also I'd like to welcome, this will be available on a replay, and so if you're viewing it as a replay, please know we welcome you as well and hope you find great value in it. One of the things I always say is you don't have to be great to get started, but you do have to get started to be great. And what better time to remember that than on the first day of the new business year? Whatever last year was or wasn't for you, don't worry about it. It's gone. You can't do anything about it, but what you can do is learn from it. And so don't dwell on it. Don't worry, just move on, just as all of us need to do about many things that, maybe didn't go quite as planned. And if you had a stellar year last year, well, let's see how we can do that again and maybe make it even better, make it easier. Maybe you have more time to actually live your life. Sometimes when we have really great years, everything is about the business and we let our personal and everything else go away. So let's not do that this year either. So how many of you all have a sales forecast for this year? If you could press 1 if you have a sales forecast already, or press 2 if you don't. I'm not seeing any responses, so I hope that doesn't mean no one has a plan. Well, okay, so let's move forward. How many of y'all saw the movie Star Wars over the holiday? Yay for you having a plan. How many of y'all saw the movie Star Wars? The Force Awakens? Well, I believe that a sales forecast is like the Force Awakening. If you've had one, terrific. Let's talk about how it worked for you. And if you haven't had one, let's talk about how you can get started with it. So oftentimes when I work with people, one of the first questions I ask them as well is, do you have a plan? You wouldn't take a trip without a map. You wouldn't want a doctor to operate on you if you didn't have a plan. You wouldn't want to walk in a courtroom if you didn't have a plan. And yet people get up every day and do sales with no plan and then wonder why they don't meet the expectations that they had for themselves. So today we're going to talk about how, if you have one, it could be better perhaps, and if you don't have one, how you can get started. In my experience, when I started at Texas Instruments, or let me go back for a moment, I started in sales at Texas Instruments selling semiconductors. I moved on, I sold printed circuit boards, contract manufacturing, plastic injection molding, transformers, you name it. If it had to do with the technology industry, we were selling it. And when I worked in that business, one of the things that I worked for a man that we lovingly called the Tank, and at the time we just thought he was a monster. It turns out he was genius. But every Monday, we would have a meeting and talk about what we were going to do for the week. But not only talk about it, we'd write it down and discuss it. And so if you didn't do it for the week, then next Monday you'd be talking about it again. And if you succeeded, next Monday you'd be talking about how great it was. Hence the name of this program, Monday Sales with Debbie. Whatever time zone you're on, I hope it's still Monday wherever you are. And so this can start your week for you. But anyway, so what we would do is we would sit down and talk about what our goals were for the week, what we did the last week and all, but we had a format for it. Well, Terry the Tank Pritchett was diligent with it, and I really did. I thought, why do we need to do this? And yet, I was number one in sales, huge profit margins. I could tell you it worked, but at that young age, I didn't exactly know why. In all my wisdom, I actually quit working for him over all this accountability that he insisted on and went to work for somebody else, and they didn't have that. And amazingly, I found myself drawn back to it again and again. And for the last 20 years, I've been doing consulting and helping other people be great at their sales. And the basis, the foundation of that for each and every one has been a sales forecast. So here goes. It isn't something you need software for. Nothing fancy. For years and years, it was done with pencil and paper. And so if you have an Excel spreadsheet, or seriously, a pencil and paper, I want you to make a column on the left side, and I want it to have 5 categories. The first being suspect. Just write these down first, and then we'll go back and discuss each one of them. The first one is suspect. The next one is prospect. The next one is hard lead. The next one is proposal. And the next one is customers. And so always when getting started at this exercise, it can be pretty intimidating for people. So I say, well, let's start with the easy step. Let's start with customers. Who are your customers today? Just write their names down under that category called customers. And to the right of that on your sheet, you're going to have what we call 12-month rolling forecast. So today happens to be January, so we'll start with January and it'll go through next December. But if today were March 30th, we would start with March and go through next February. If you have never had a forecast, this is going to be a pain to get started, but you'll be glad that you did because you never have to start over again because this one rolls. So what you do is, whoever that first customer you have is, look out January through December and write down how much business they've already placed with you. Do that for every customer and then subtotal that. And then just above that, in the category Outstanding Proposals, I want you to list who you already have proposals out to. Now, some of you don't have businesses where you do proposals. You meet them and they buy something. That's okay. We can customize the sales forecast for you. But if you do proposals, list who you have the proposals for right here. And then again, to the right, January through December, I want you to put down what your proposal is proposing for their business. So if they're going to do $1,000 January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, put it down there. Whatever you put in your proposal, put it down here and subtotal that category. Okay? Easy enough. Customers, you already know who they are and what orders they've given you. Proposals, you already know who those are. And you know what you've proposed to them. So then go back to the top of the form where it says suspects. And how I define a suspect is somebody who doesn't know you and you don't know them. A suspect, some people call blue sky, or other things. But I believe if you don't quantify your suspects, you leave a large opportunity on the table that you never follow up on because you're never looking at it. So a suspect could be somebody you got up read the business section of the paper this morning and you saw a new company was in town that's just like a company that you already do business with. So they don't know you, you don't know them. So just put their name down there, and then to quantify them, for now, I want you to use the same numbers that you use for the customer that you already have like them. So if the customer you already have does $500 a month, I want you to put $500 a month next to your suspect's name and quantify it that way. Okay? So do all your suspects. Then the next category is your prospects. Your prospects are when you have met them, you have communicated with them, you've talked to them on the phone. In some way, you know one another now. That's when you move from a suspect to a prospect. And so a suspect then moves down to your prospect category, and based on whatever information you might have gotten from them in your initial conversations, visits, emails, then you can change those numbers that you used before to quantify them. And maybe you just want to leave them the same for now. Then the third category is hard leads. Hard leads are when you have identified a very specific opportunity, you've talked about the details of it, but perhaps the customer's budget hasn't been approved. Perhaps they're not ready for an official proposal yet. You want to have a place to park those opportunities. So put those in hard leads. So suspects, prospects, hard leads, proposals, and customers. If you subtotal each of those categories, and then on the bottom right-hand side, you have a grand total, you might be amazed at what that number is. When I go in to talk to people for the first time, I also ask, how much business would you like to do this year? And they tell me whatever, 1 million, 500,000, 6 million, 60 million. It doesn't matter what it is. I just always like to know what they're thinking when we begin. And then I ask them to do this assignment and go forth and, excuse me, phone ringing, the joy of Periscope. Anyway, so then we ask them, after they've done the forecast and they've quantified each and every one of them, say they said they wanted to do $1 million a year, but what the total ended up being, that grand total on the far right-hand side ends up being 7 million, then my question is, which would you like to do? 7 million or 1 million. It doesn't matter to me, but let's get going. The truth is, most people have more opportunities than they ever give themselves credit for, and yet they don't write them down. They don't hold themselves accountable, and so therefore they don't know. And they go through a lot of frustration and aggravation that is really unnecessary. Whereas if they had identified everything and then identified a plan for each of those opportunities as to how to make them happen, who they know knows them, that could introduce them, whatever it is, it's amazing what they can do at the end of the year. I'm here to tell you, in 20 years of consulting, what I have found when people do this exercise, and yes, I always say it's a big asterisk in that I know it is a pain to get started, but just do it, as Nike says. But here's the deal. When you do, most people see at least a double-digit growth in a very short period of time. And they realize where they've been leaving opportunities on the table, where they've not followed up, they've forgotten, any of those kind of things. There's 1,000 reasons. So for today, for this year, I want you to quit thinking you don't have time to do a forecast. It's not for you. And I don't care if your boss does or doesn't ask you to do a forecast. I don't believe forecasting is micromanaging. I believe each and every one of